Okay, so we've all come together today for this amazing cause, but why are you so compelled to take action to prevent suicide in this way? Andy, you mentioned that you were Sophie's dad. Could you tell us a little bit more about your story?
Yeah, well, suicide for us was something that happened to other people. Very sad, tragic things. And we knew of people who'd taken their own lives, but it wasn't anything to do with us until it was. When out of the blue, our daughter took her own life. Soph was 29, nursing up in Edinburgh, and we just didn't see it coming. Um, and she gave us no chance to help her. We were, people say shattered or devastated. And the words don't mean anything actually in terms of how you feel. Uh, but when we were trying to work out, we were trying to work out what to do at Soph's funeral, actually. A friend pointed us at Papyrus, Prevention of Young Suicide. Never heard of them. Why should we? And when we looked at their website, we thought they looked great, and we got hold of them. And when we spoke to them, we realised the work they were doing was phenomenal. So we supported Papyrus at Sophie's funeral, and realizing the work they were doing, particularly with Helpline 24/7 and the suicide prevention training they were doing across the country, you realized that they were saving lives every day. I couldn't let them go, and ended up doing a lot of fundraising for them. Did a lot of running, which I'm not actually built to run, but I did a lot of that. And in lockdown, I was hula hooping and skipping on the radio, which is a bit weird. But trying to raise the profile and signpost people of what that charity did, and it kind of just grew from there. And when Mike and Tim and I got together by a quirk of fate, we were all pointing in that direction, and the three dads phenomenon kind of took off and took on a life of its own, and away we go. So we've spoken to hundreds of people touched by suicide, thousands of people touched by suicide across the country, and realised that by sharing our stories, we can make a difference. So we keep doing it.
Could you tell us a bit more about how the Twinkle Feather Pack is helping young people, as well as all of these new programs within schools?
Um, so I mean, it's hopefully it's helping, it's helping to break down the stigma
Mhm.
about suicide, the word, suicide prevention, suicide awareness, mental well-being. It's hopefully, like I said earlier, teaching young children um, techniques of how to deal with those strong emotions and building on that from a young age to recognize and manage, big feelings, as the little ones call it, don't they? Because I think that if you teach young children how to manage those big feelings, they'll then take that to being an adult, won't they? And if not, then the pack has age appropriate activities in there for a 4 year old, a 7 year old, a 10 year old, 12 year old, 17 year old, 70 year old. There's loads of different activities, techniques, support, advice, regardless as to how old you are, really.
While now people like Vicky can shine a little sparkle,
Mhm.
um, there are so many people in the past that have struggled so much. How do you think that organisations and society as a whole have failed to address this huge issue in the past?
Mm.
Well, I can start, I think, on that one because up until we lost Sophie, we were ignoring it because you just do. It's somebody else's problem. It's stuff that happens to other people. And then when it did happen and you're kind of thrown into this world, you realize that people don't talk about, we as a society do not talk about it. We don't talk about suicide because it's scary.
We need to we need to be more open and more honest about how I mean, I'm saying that we were an open and honest house. We did talk about our mental health, and we did talk about things that aggravated us and upset us and how we could manage that, and it was just in that moment, whatever had happened, Heather had forgotten all of that, you know. But I think having this conversation with you guys and sharing it with everybody out there, it encourages people to be more open and honest, you know. I mean, one of the things in the Twinkle for Heather pack that it advises you on how to approach a conversation with somebody if you have worries about that person sat there who's your friend of 20 years or whatever, and you think, something not quite right. There are pointers in the Twinkle for Heather pack in the back of how to approach that subject. Talking about suicide openly and honestly isn't going to encourage somebody with suicidal thoughts to do it. It's going to open up the conversation. It's going to open up their thought basis thinking, well, they're clearly comfortable talking about this dark secret, you know, this dark emotion. Maybe then I can open up, you know, because talking about it doesn't make people do it. It gives them that channel to voice whatever it is that they're feeling. And, you know, if you don't know what else to say, then the Twinkle for Heather pack will give you links to people that do know what to say.
And we're not asking people to just having a conversation might be that life-saving conversation. That might be all you need. Just being with someone, just sitting with them and letting them be with their feelings might be all it takes. But I think we live in a very fast, very busy world. It's very instant. And I think people don't know what to say. And I think there are, even in schools, there are teachers who don't really want to have those conversations. Well, we're not asking people to have those conversations. We're asking them to be a listening ear and to be able to signpost to someone who can have those conversations. And that's really, really important. I think as a society, we've got very used to walking past someone who's crying or upset. It's much easier to pick someone up who has fallen over than to sit with someone who's crying. And people don't want to get involved. They're frightened because if you ask them if you ask someone how they are, they will say they're fine. If you ask again, that gives them the permission to say, actually, I'm feeling rubbish. But then what? Oh no, what do I do now? Because I've asked them. I wish I hadn't said it. You know, and I think that's the culture. That's the shift we need to make with these sorts of conversations. It's all that matters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think it's really essential that we as organisations don't shy away from making it open to have these conversations with individuals and youth groups. You know, at Girlguiding North West England, we encourage leaders to engage in these type of conversations with younger members to make sure that, you know, they know that, you know, their leader or someone they may help out at their unit is open to discussing them with the conversation. As Vicky said, you know, it's just are you okay, asking twice, making sure that they feel like their voice is being heard, because, you know, as an organisation, as Girlguiding North West England, we take these type of concerns really seriously, and we listen to our young members in creating a supportive, safe and inclusive environment.
And even if that conversation just entails you thinking, I don't know what else to say, here's a phone number for Papyrus Homeline.
It's knowing those organisations.
Shout, you know, or yeah.
And Girlguiding do have so much power in the lives of so many, 300,000 across the UK, girls and young women aged 4 to 18, who are often at risk of having suicidal thoughts or struggling with their mental well-being. Andy, was there anything else you wanted to add?
Well, yeah, it was actually kind of, I suppose, leads on to the next bit, really. When we walked that first time, we walked from here in Cumbria to Mike's house in Manchester, then across to Tim's house in Norfolk over 15 days. And we were joined every day by suicide bereaved parents, which were very powerful. It was a real privilege, actually, to have accidentally created a bit of a safe space that people came into and shared their stories about their loved ones and their experience. A lot of it, like ours, hadn't seen it come in and didn't know, well, didn't know that it was the biggest killer of under 35s in the country, and it was a real shock to everybody. But the thing was, in those conversations, we kept getting this same question kept coming up. If this is the biggest killer of our young people, why didn't anybody tell us? Or why didn't anybody talk to them about it? And it was at the end of that walk, we thought, well, what a bloody good question that is, If this is the biggest risk to our young people's lives, what are we doing about it? And it made us actually go and look at the school curriculum. It was a bit weird for four old blokes to go and start scratching through the school curriculum. But we did, and what we found was the word suicide prevention are not in it, or weren't in it. It just wasn't there, wasn't mentioned. There's a lot of good stuff about mental health, mental well-being, and emotional, being positive in terms of emotional management and things like that. Positivity about activity and being active. But suicide prevention was not mentioned. The words were not in there. And so we asked, just thinking about how society or organisations failed, we as a society and the system of training young people failed because we didn't talk to young people about the biggest risk in their lives.
And so, thanks to you and Mike and Tim, that's now going to change.
Well, yeah. Well, that was quite odd because we just asked the question. We're up to the government and said, if this is the biggest risk of our young people, why don't we talk to them about it? And that was in 2021.
And I think also it's the power of the media as well, because you have friends in the right places, Andy. So just to get the BBC and Alison on the case right at the beginning, because we were already in schools, we were doing that because we had seen that was something that was needed, because that's the generational shift as well. We need to start with the young people, so that they can take it home and start talking to their parents about it.
Exactly.
So we have been, well, since I started, that was my job initially, was to work on the schools project. And we've now trained up over half of the secondary schools in Cumbria in suicide prevention, because we're breaking down those barriers, we're talking openly, we're breaking those stigmas, we're encouraging people to ask for help. And it's amazing the numbers of young people that come up to us after we've delivered in school saying, I didn't know I could say this, or you've allowed me to say it. And the other thing for me is the number of young people that were bereaved by suicide as a primary age child whose secondary schools didn't necessarily realise or know, because that has a massive impact on them as a teenager. And they become they're even more vulnerable. Once you've been suicide bereaved, you are immediately high risk for having suicidal ideation. So, it's really important that we keep these channels of communication open, because this is about keeping our young people safe, and they deserve it and they're worth it. And we've got to give them those skills to keep them safe from themselves often. So, yeah.
So you mentioned there about the amazing work you've been doing getting this into schools. Could you tell us a little bit more about this and all of the progress that has been made by this team?
Well, I'd say it was again completely by accident. At the end of that first walk, we felt we had this collective voice of all these suicide bereaved parents that we'd spoken to, just saying, why didn't anybody tell them? And so that led to we wrote to the then government at the end of 2021, it would have been, and we ended up having our first meeting with a Minister of Health at the start of 2022. We walked again in 2022 we walked between the four Parliament buildings of the UK, just over 600 miles, and ran a petition alongside that walk asking for the suicide prevention to be made a compulsory part of the school curriculum. That got over 160,000 signatures. It ended up being debated in Parliament, which is a very surreal moment to be there, when 40 odd MPs were in a committee room. Over half of them spoke, and without exception, they all said, we've looked at what these people have been talking about, and they're right. All these young people are dying, and we're not talking about it to them as within schools. The process went on for a long time. We realised that the machinery of government is designed to stand still, not to change. But every MP we met, from whatever party we met, just kept saying, keep going, just keep going, keep asking the same question. So we did. And eventually, at the end of last year, there was a new draft curriculum written that actually had suicide prevention in it. But it took a long time to go through public consultation, partly because of the election last year. And then when the new government came in, it took them quite a while to pick up various pieces. But eventually, on July the 1st this year, Mike, Tim and I were sat in number 10 Downing Street with the Prime Minister and Bridget Phillips and the Secretary of State for Education. And Bridget said, right, we've been listening to everything that you've said, you and others have said, and we can tell you that as of the academic year coming up, the new curriculum will have suicide prevention in it, and it will be a compulsory part for secondary schools. And there it was. But it is just for England at the moment. And so the schools now have got a year to get themselves in place, delivering the appropriate, age-appropriate lessons in a safe way across schools. Some schools and some areas are geared up better than others. As Vicky was saying earlier on, Every Life Matters are out there doing it and have been doing it for years. So Cumbria is actually well placed. Cumbria schools are well placed to pick this up. A lot of other schools across the country aren't. But it's there. Schools have now got permission to talk about suicide prevention. So it does appear on the curriculum. And just that fact will start saving lives immediately. Once these conversations start happening, lives will be saved.
Yeah.
You mentioned there about this topic having to be age appropriate to be taught. That has been one of the main goals with the Twinkle Pair Challenge Pack, because it is available from rainbow ages of 4 all the way up to 18. So how is the declaration within schools and Papyrus's working together with the Twinkle Pair Challenge Pack and Vicky for Every Life Matters and bereavement support? How is it all coming together towards this one goal?
I've got some ideas. Do you want to go, Andy?
No, I was going to give it to you anyway.
Oh.
I think the thing is with us, we know we are not the experts.
You're very good at commenting about it.
Well, the thing is, we're 3 bereaved dads who've just been asking the same question. If this is the biggest killer of our young people, why don't we talk to them about it? So we've now managed to bash through all the why don't we talk about it to, right, we've got to do it. But we haven't got the answer of how to do it. Yeah. But we know lots of people who have got the answer. Don't we, Vicky?
How do we do it, Vicky?
Yeah. So I taught 4-year-olds, and the 4-year-olds in my class could come to me and say, Mrs. B, my seesaw's out of balance. And they were talking about their internal resources. I was expecting too much of them with the resources they had inside. And my gut feel is that if a 4-year-old can say, I'm on red and I need to get to green, or whatever it is, whatever the vocabulary is, they are already talking about their mental health. They are already aware enough to be able to vocalize that. So we just build on that, and so in primary schools, I feel quite passionate that primary schools are great places, and little people feel very safe in a primary school. They know who to go to. They'll find, I support a lot of primary age children, very sadly, but they know they're a safe person. They know that they can talk. They're very, very good at they haven't got a filter. So they'll say exactly what they're feeling. The trouble comes
to put a plaster on a scraped knee.
Absolutely, because that works for little people. But what we don't want to do with suicide prevention is just put a plaster on it and hope it's going to get better. We need to encourage our older children and young people to absolutely open up. And what's interesting, and Andy knows this from the research, in Australia and America, they run the same program every single year. So it's not necessarily changing, but what their argument is that as someone gets older, they take on different bits of it and internalize it and understand it in a different way. So you're not actually changing the material in any way necessarily, but it's reinforcing and consolidating all the time.
It's the person that's changing.
That's
Absolutely.
right.
And I think the really important thing here, and the really crucial thing, is that the people that are teaching it get it. Because if you have a teacher in school shying away from saying suicide, then immediately those students are going to think, oh, I can't talk about suicide.
Yeah.
So we've got to get the right people delivering.
Yeah.
And we've got to empower our teaching staff. You know, our aim is to train up every single member of staff in schools in Cumbria by the end of next year. That's our aim.
Teachers need the support as well, as do all members of staff in schools, and all parents, and all of us in society. So all we're trying to do is change society, Lily. Don't worry about it. We'll get there.
Change the world.
We've got to get there, Vix, aren't we?
We will.
Giving half the chance.
Yeah.
We're on a mission. On a mission.
It's why at Girlguiding, we've started partnering with experts and running workshops. We aim, obviously, to provide practical tools to manage stress and promote well-being. And the Girlguiding programme includes dedicated activities and resources aiming to build confidence, resilience and self-esteem, ensuring that obviously every young member and adult members are heard and valued. Our volunteers are trusted adults, so it's not just schools and teachers, it's volunteers of youth organisations that also need to know that they have a better understanding of these topics, and that we as the organisation are encouraging open conversations around mental health at unit meetings and through peer support.
Additionally, we're obviously promoting Twinkle for Hella Challenge Pack, which is a wonderful way for the young members to kind of introduce it to our young members about mental health, suicide awareness, which is also building up their resilience as well.
That's the hope, that we're trying to educate and establish positive mental well-being from an early age, alongside giving people resources when they don't know where to turn or they don't know who to talk to. Yeah,
and I think it definitely is mental well-being that is the start of it all, and that can be even way before anybody's having any thoughts about suicide. That can change the course of their life.
absolutely.
When I completed the Twinkle for Heather Challenge Pack in my guide unit, it really did open up conversations with the younger 10-year-olds and with people more my age, and the leaders too. And just doing the activities, having some kind of peace, some quiet, mindful conversations that might have saved someone's life.
That's beautiful, that, Lily. And that's what we want, that's what the pack's about.
Yeah.
So what are we planning next? How can we continue this change in the way this is tackled into the future?
Well, for us, the three of us, Mike, Tim and I, during September and October, we're all involved with the Baton of Hope, which is travelling around the country, which is a fantastic project created by a couple of suicide bereaved dads, Steve and Mike. And it's a real message of hope. It's trying to bring together people who've been touched by suicide, carrying this beautiful gold and silver baton, handing it from person to person. So that's going around the country through September and October, finishing in London on October the 10th, I think it is. So that's the first thing.
Health Awareness Day.
Yeah. But then the second thing for us is, as I said, with the curriculum, it's only in England now. So we've now got meetings with the cabinet secretaries in Wales and Scotland to say, right, this is what's happening in England. What are you going to do about it? So that's what we're doing next.
Good. Twinkle for Heather, what are we doing next? Well, Team H's Angels is walking the walk to remember this evening. That's a family and friends thing, really. We're raising money for the local hospice in Heather's memory, and from here we are hoping to create a short information film that's going to be shown in the local colleges, promoting mental well-being, suicide prevention, suicide awareness and support. The Twinkle for Heather team are also doing the Northwest Region guiding event at Great Tower in October. We have a little kind of Twinkle for Heather chill out zone going on in the middle of the forest.
Very looking forward to that.
Sorry?
Very much looking forward to that.
Yes. Yeah, it should be a great weekend. And then just more of the same, really, you know. Hopefully we'll have a Keswick to Barra team again next year to do the Keswick to Barra walk, raise money between Papyrus and the Twinkle for Heather team, because our aim is to try and get money together to help international girl guiding volunteers, you know, maybe try and do a bursary, which Heather would have absolutely loved, because her proudest moments in girl guiding were her international trips to Romania. So that is something that's very close to my heart. But yeah, just keep on promoting, try to kick down those barriers, and you know.
Definitely. And we've got, well, I've been at Soulfest during the summer, and a friend of mine had made an enormous 8-foot guitar and packed it with wood, and in between all the bits of wood inside, I'd gone round asking over 500 people to write their messages of hope. And so I had over 500 conversations about mental health at Soulfest, and then we lit it, and all those messages of hope went out into the air, which felt very special and very
lovely.
important. Keep talking, breaking down, like everyone said, breaking down those barriers, talking about it, encouraging our young people to realise that the situation will pass, feelings change, you know, it goes, but it's not instant anymore. So we've got to sit with it, and we've got to give these things the time they need to go. But just encouraging people to reach out, to keep talking.
I'm just going to quickly follow on from what Sarah said. Obviously, from Girlguiding North West England's point of view, how we encourage to make sure we keep raising awareness around mental health and suicide prevention going forward is that obviously we will promote each national day around mental health. We obviously have two amazing ambassadors, Sarah and Emily, Heather's mum and sister, part of our region to help us raise awareness around mental health. As Sarah mentioned, at our event on the 4th and 5th of October, Adventures by the Mountains, Twinkle for Heather have an area as part of our event where members have the opportunity to visit and get involved in activities and be part of what Twinkle for Heather is and learn more about it if they don't already know. And we're here as an organisation to encourage volunteers and young members to use their free voice and, you know, feel like they have space to talk about issues.
So as we come to the end, what would you say to either adults who want to help young people in these situations, or what advice would you give to any young person struggling with their mental well-being?
I'm ready. Be kind, be nosy, be brave. That's what I would say. Find out more. If you're worried about someone, don't be afraid to have that conversation. If you're talking to someone who's having those thoughts, we don't make big conversations when we're not big decisions when we're not feeling right. So press pause, stop, take a breath. Let's look at this. We don't need to make that decision right now.
The thing that comes to my mind, before we lost Soph, we never thought about suicide prevention, because why would you? The thing we try and rattle the cages now is to get people who haven't been touched by suicide just to think about it, to be aware of it. The realization that it's the biggest killer of our young people, the biggest killer of under 35s in the country. Try and get that message through, and then say, just go and learn something, go and find out something. Not to turn yourself into a suicide prevention expert, but just have some knowledge, and some degree. Have some way you can signpost somebody, whether it's Every Life Matters in Cumbria or Papyrus across the country, or there's so many other organisations out there. But to get that little bit of knowledge while the going's good, and then in terms of anybody who's struggling, as Vic said, reach out for help. We've learned that there is so much help out there, but until you know it's there, you don't know where to reach out to. So, but reach out, ask somebody for help, because you will find people will do whatever they can to help you.
Yeah.
I think that's so vital, just for everyone to know where to ask for help, because everyone knows to call 999 in an emergency, but the people don't know where to go in that kind of emergency.
Or 111 option 2 now is really good. It will connect you to your local 24-hour mental health crisis line. And our paramedics say time and time again, they would rather go out to someone before than when it's too late.
Yeah.
So they will always go to you if you ring 999.
Yeah. And my last note was reach out. The moment will pass. Just reach out.
Yeah.
And if you don't know where to turn, call Papyrus 24/7 Hope line on 0800 068 4141.